The Olympics are underway over in Tokyo, and this year, once again, we have both men's and women's golf, and with golf on the menu, we have DFS to talk about for today. We'll be focusing on the men's side of things, getting you set to fill out your DFS rosters for the Olympic Games. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here once again by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. Brandon, back from his vacation. And Brandon, we did not get to discuss Colin Morikawa in his Open Championship victory. I didn't get to talk to you last week to maybe prevent me from doom with my DFS lineups. So welcome back. How was the vacation and how are you doing?
Vacation's a bit of a strong word. My wife always has some extreme stuff planned for us. We had to go down to Florida for a wedding. So we ended up tacking on, the wedding was in Key Largo. So we went the whole way down to Key West and took a ferry 70 miles off of Key West to go to Dry Tortugas National Park because we were trying to check off all the national parks.
Is there a Wet Tortugas National Park as well?
I haven't checked the list, but we do have I got my wife a poster where she can check off all the parks we've been to. But
was Williams Astudillo, La Tortuga at the island or no? He did get sent down to AAA, so it's very possible he was just roaming loose in the wild.
I mean, it would take some effort for anyone to get there because it's a 2.5 hour ferry
Ever doubt
ride.
La Tortuga?
I mean, I don't know. He's plays baseball based on context, so who knows what could happen?
Context clues.
Know anything about him?
I do have a shirt of Williams Astudillo, so I should have sent that with you. Yeah, to lay it on his homeland. I could have done that, but I'm glad that you're back because It's going to be an interesting week this week from a DFS perspective, talking about the men's Olympic Games. They are at Kasumigaseki Country Club out near Tokyo, 7,447 yards and a par 71. It is a no-cut event for this week. There are 60 golfers in the field, so no cut. That's a bonus, and we'll talk about the implications of that in just 1 second. But first, as a quick reminder, the PGA Q&A, although it's not PGA, the golf Q&A is back once again this week, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages if you want to quiz Brandon on his thoughts on betting and DFS for this week. And I believe you'll be talking the women's side of things as well there, correct?
That's next week.
Oh, next week? Oh, wow.
Big whiff,
Jim. Big whiff, idiot. Are the odds posted yet?
I believe so. I will run simulations and have some content up on numberFire for it. But
okay, Nelly Korda is a favorite. Thoughts?
Well, I've been doing my best with LPGA stats, which are incredibly hard to come by because of the state of the game. But hopefully things are supposed to be getting better. But I did run some adjusted strokes gain numbers, which is probably some of the more advanced stuff that's out there for LPGA. Not the hugest on the Korda sisters necessarily, but I was just proven wrong. So I think I'm gonna have to make some manual adjustments for Nelly Korda.
Okay, perfect. We're going to talk about that next week then, I'd assume, on the Q&A. I won't be here, but you will, so you can talk about that then. But we will be talking about the men's competition this week from a DFS betting perspective. That's at 3:30 on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages, so make sure you're subscribed on your platform of choice there. Also, hit us up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed to get this podcast and others as well. Quick note about lock for this week. We are used to Thursday morning. It will lock at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night because they're, I think, 13 hours ahead of us in Tokyo. So make sure you have your lineup set early. If you are a procrastinator like me, don't do that this week. Brandon, we don't know a lot of Kasumigaseki Country Club. We don't have shot link data, et cetera, but based on the course layout and stuff like that, we can kind of make some assumptions around how this will play and who may benefit from the course layout. So when you look at this course, what stands out to you as far as stats we should emphasize for this week?
Yeah, I was trying to pull up. in my course primer on numberFire, I linked to an article. I believe it was maybe this didn't save and I closed it out because I was writing stuff from the car, but I'll pull it back up. But someone from either golf.com or golfchannel.com or golfdigest.com or one of those was talking to Tommy Fleetwood and his caddy. And Fleetwood was trying to come up with some sort of like comp for this course and threw out like 3 or 4 that don't really quite mesh together, and then kind of realized like he doesn't really have a comp for the course. So I mean, that probably is telling. I would take their word over mine from just looking at any and all notes that I can come up with. But some interesting things that I did come across is that the greens are supposed to be bent grass, so we should have some putting splits available to us for golfers who play on the PGA Tour. The stimp meter, though, which if anyone doesn't know, is basically just a device to measure how fast the greens are. Usually we're at around like 11.5 on the PGA Tour. It's anticipated that these will run at like a 9 to 10, which is going to be really slow. What does that mean? That's a great question. It's still up in the air. I've tried to research it myself. I do think that anecdotally, the slower greens will allow the better putters to be more aggressive, but also worse putters probably won't be running things past the hole quite as easily. So I would say probably don't anticipate making too many changes based on green speed. If anything, probably bump up the better putters overall who can get a little bit more aggressive and actually find the line and sink some putts. And so this is a long-standing course. It's been around for more than 100 years. Tom Fazio had a redesign in 2016, added more than 400 yards to the layout. So, there are concerns that the fairways are too wide, which would be good for golfers who are long off the tee and not necessarily the most accurate. But I do think that distance as well is kind of a key stat because of how the holes break down. 7 holes in total are at least 109%. I usually do 110%, but an extra hole was 109% longer than the median hole length of the same par on the PGA Tour. So basically, are these like 10% longer than your average par 4, for example? And we have 7 holes out of 18, obviously, that do rate out significantly longer than normal. It's 2 long par 3s, 3 long par 4s, 2 long par 5s. There are some short par 4s as well. So all of that kind of points me to driving distance, especially if the fairways are a little bit too wide. So distance is kind of the one key stat that I'm honing in on that is at least something other than, approach and strokes gained tee to green and all around. So distance is something that I'm going to weight in pretty heavily for this week. My key stats, though, are just going to be all encompassing because this is a 72-hole format with no cut. That means that, yes, you can punt with some lower end plays, but they also will be falling behind over 72 holes. So don't get too cute. And actually, I think, finding golfers who do everything well to some degree have a lot of appeal. So my key stats are strokes gained approach, driving distance, birdie or better rate for that FanDuel scoring boost, strokes gained putting on bent grass, and then just to have 5, I do have around the green as well, but that's easily the one that I'm least concerned about.
And regarding the ability to punt, I think that one thing we need to keep in mind too is that not everyone here is like on the same level necessarily from a quality perspective. And I think there is a drop off at a certain point where you kind of reach the end of like the guys who can realistically push for a top 10. Yeah. And I want to make sure I'm living in that range. Like if you look at Data Golf's true strokes gain number, there is like a fall off like around, Christian Bezuidenhout, after him, after Guido Migliozzi, after Siwoo Kim, things do start to tail off pretty quickly. And there are some relevant guys down there. Like you've got, CT Pond, I guess, Sebastian Munoz, Garrick Higo, guys like that. But there is a certain point where it falls off the table. And my goal from a roster construction perspective is going to be to make sure I have 6 guys who can realistically get a top 10, which means I can't punt. I don't think I can personally this week. I think there are guys Like there are guys in like Mita Pereira is $7,800. Maybe I could go to him, but like the number of guys I'm willing to punt with is not very large. So although it's a no cut event, I still feel like it's a week where having some semblance of balance, or at least avoiding the true punt plays, to me will be valuable.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking around, but I was trying to focus more of it on a course fit standpoint. Like it sounds really like, we talk about this every time we get a no-cut event. It sounds like great to be like, well, if I just play, a guy or two at 7,500 or below, they're not going to miss the cut, so it's going to be fine. What you're really doing is, undercutting your chance to hit the winner, and you're going to need the winner in a 60 golfer no-cut event. And if you roster two guys who are way down the list, not even, I think Pereira is a good play, but below that, you're just really saying, I don't need this fifth or sixth roster slot because I already know who's going to win, and it's a little bit more it's a little more confident than I typically am. But speaking to the field strength, we have only 3 golfers in the official World Golf Rankings. Might not be perfect, but we have 3 golfers inside the top 10. All of them are inside the top 5. That's Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, and Xander Schauffele. 28 are inside the top 100, and then 20 of the 60. So I think that's a third, if I'm not mistaken, outside the top 200. So, speaking to what Jim said about that drop off, it is a drop off. So just be careful with getting a little bit too confident with the low end plays.
And we'll talk about some of the low-end plays who do work later on throughout the podcast for today. But first, baseball fans, FanDuel is giving you an exclusive way to get in on the action with the MLB Single Entry Series presented by Roto-Grinders. Each week, enter a featured Single Entry Series contest to win cash and compete for a seat in the $40,000 online final. Just play daily and we'll add your 4 highest point totals together to get your combined score and rank for the week. Head over to FanDuel and enter the MLB Single Entry Series today. Eligibility restrictions apply. Head over to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Fantasy app for more details. And because it is a 15-game slate on Tuesday, scores will be high. So if you want to jack up that score for the full week, get in for today. Let's take a look at some current form here. Obviously, there is no course history to discuss. We do have golfers whose form we can investigate and try to decide how we're going to handle them for this week. And an interesting one for this week, Brandon, is Rory McIlroy. Comes in at $11,500. But as we know, things have been a little dicey for Rory McIlroy as of late. Coming off a 46 at the Open Championship, he is 11-5 for this week. When you look at Rory's form, what are you seeing and what are your thoughts on him for this week?
Yes, I mean, there are a lot of red flags. And with so few golfers in the field, it's definitely important to avoid the landmines, but also to be open to ways of differentiating. And that could easily just include rostering golfers without elite current form. That would apply to McIlroy, who since his win at the Wells Fargo in early May has gone 49th to 18th, 7th, 59th, cut, and 46th at the British Open, as you said. Now, the irons have actually been pretty strong overall in that sample. Over his past 20 rounds, McIlroy is 10th in Data Golf's True Strokes Gained approach. He is 14th tee to green. But that's out of 53 golfers in this field with ShotLink data, so keep that in mind. And he's the 4th highest salaried golfer in the field. Again, just 14th in that really recent sample, tee to green, so it doesn't quite match up. 20 rounds is not enough to know who a golfer is, but Rory's longer-term sample is not as strong as other golfers at the top, including especially Xander Schauffele, whose long-term form is just always great, but Colin Morikawa and a few others. So, even with only 60 golfers, it can still be hard to whittle things down. I think McIlroy is the one place where we can look at the top and say no thanks, but this is a very volatile sport. And we know that Rory McIlroy still has win upside. We saw it at Wells Fargo. So do you see anything with McIlroy to get you there this week?
I think the distance is good. That helps. I think that, as you mentioned, the approach play has been very good. So distance and approach is good. His bent grass numbers are not terrible. He's about neutral for the most part on bent grass. He's not actively bad around the green. He ranks 18th there. So there are reasons to at least have interest here. And I would say that kind of combines to make him viable. The question that I would have is he the best guy to pivot on? because not everyone who is in good form at the top will be popular. So I feel like, to me, I'd rather try to find someone who is in good form, who will go overlooked for one reason or another. I think that we're going to see a lot of popularity for Colin Morikawa. I think we can say that with a pretty decent amount of confidence. Hideki, I think that
Xander is always popular.
Right. And then you also have Hideki, who's very popular, and coming off the Masters, obviously the narratives are there as well. I feel like if we kind of lop off those guys, you're looking at maybe Justin Thomas, looking at Rory. Victor Hovland might honestly go a bit overlooked. So I feel like, to me, there are a couple of guys I'd rather turn to over Rory and try to differentiate. I think that Hovland especially is really enticing because he's not going to be one of those like automatic like pop-up guys. So I feel like even when I'm trying to differentiate, Rory might wind up being a little bit lower on that list.
We should have a segment each week with the automatic pop-up guys.
Automatic pop-up guys.
Yeah.
So used to be Ricky back in the day when people wanted to use Ricky in DFS. I think Hideki is on that list this week for sure, given the
Wait, are we talking about like just popularity standpoint?
Yes.
Pop-up? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, oh, this guy's like an auto play. So
like a whack-a-mole type thing? Like poop.
No, like, oh, this guy, like, as I'm doing any precursory information or research at all, like all the information just says like, oh yeah, this guy, play this guy. I thought that was like the pops up to the top of the list. That's how I interpret.
I think Hideki checks both boxes, and I feel like Morikawa will check those boxes. So I think that like you're asking like, would you rather go Rory, JT, or Hovland if they're not the guys who have like those automatic like popularity for red flags? I feel like I'd just go Hovland, then JT, then Rory among those three if I'm trying to differentiate.
Yeah, I like JT. He's one of my favorite plays. I'll talk about him in player picks. No cut event, like superstar. That's something I'm factoring in. I think that probably is an angle that a lot of people will get to by I can't say Thursday, by Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
But yeah, JT in a no cut event is really appealing to me.
Okay, so let's talk about Morikawa as what I would assume will probably be the most popular play in the field if I had to bet, because coming off victory at the Open Championship, that is his third straight top five, and two of those were in majors. He now has 5 top 10s in the past 6 events. The one bad event in there was a 14th, so clearly slacking there. In each of those measured events, Morikawa gained at least 6.8 strokes in approach, which is just absurd. Did that in 3 of the previous 4 as well. Basically, Morikawa's been lights out no matter the course. But this week, it could skew towards distance. Morikawa, not the longest guy at the tee. His short game is not immaculate. It was very good at the Open, obviously. So it's hard to deny how great Morikawa has been, and that does matter no matter the course, but he's the highest salary guy, the betting favorite, he'll be popular. If I ignored popularity, I feel like Morikawa would be fine. Problem is, I think he's going to be very, very, very popular, and that worries me a bit. So what are your thoughts on Colin Morikawa for this week?
Yeah, so this week it's going to come down a lot to game theory, because you need the winner in your lineup. And if a golfer, let's say Morikawa, Xander, JT, like these high salaried guys don't win, you can still have a great lineup. You can still win tournaments on FanDuel with those guys if they don't win. But Morikawa, based on historical popularity numbers and no-cut events for favorites, like, and with Morikawa's form right now, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on 50% of lineups.
Yeah.
My win simulation model has him at 6.3% likely to win. Like, that's not the highest because Morikawa's long-term form doesn't quite match up to someone like Xander or JT or really even Hovland. It's just that Morikawa has been really good at closing out his opportunities to win. And you can say this is, where the paths diverge. Is Morikawa just that good, under pressure, or have things broken his way? And I'm inclined, especially as someone who loves Xander, to say that it's probably just how things broke for him. It's definitely, he does not get if he's unflappable, does that can we say that he doesn't get flapped? Is that but like,
I think for like FCC reasons, although they don't regulate YouTube, like maybe we should avoid, like it's not marked as explicit. He's not flapped. I don't know. That seems like we're towing the line here.
If you're not disgruntled, are you gruntled? Like that's an age-old question that I always think about from The Office. But with Morikawa, I think will be more popular than he deserves to be, just based on how likely he is to win and how at the high rate he's converted these. So Morikawa is not my favorite play this week by any means. Once I'm factoring in popularity.
Yeah, I mean, it's popularity combined with salary in a sport or in an event where I do think there is a pretty big fall off. Combine all that stuff together. He's coming off a major win. So that's kind of a tough thing to rebound from, like mentally, to like lock in, travel, go overseas, stuff like that, or back overseas across the world effectively from England. So I don't know. I think there are enough factors where I will comfortably be underweight on Collin Morikawa for this week. Always scary because he's disgusting, but I think that's the way to play things for here. Let's move now to the mid-range. Talk about Shane Lowry checking in at $10,600. And it's an interesting range for sure because I think there are some good names here, but Lowry, always worthy of discussion. What are you seeing with him coming off a 12th at the Open?
Yes, I mean, Shane Lowry is really not someone that we're in on often.
Well, I am. You might not be. I used him when he was in that 9,000 range over the early summer. I was there.
That's true.
Happily.
I just historically have been a little bit lower on Shane Lowry, but he's been lighting it up with the irons lately, and he's turned that into 8 top 25 finishes in his last 11 starts since mid-March with no missed cuts. And in his past 20 rounds, he ranks 7th in Data Golf's True Strokes Gained approach. He's 3rd tee to green, trailing just Paul Casey and Collin Morikawa. And the salary of $10,600 is not that prohibitive. The putting is still a concern, at least in an unreliable sense. You never kind of know what you're going to get with Lowry from the putter, which is, you could probably say about every golfer, but it's a little bit different for some golfers where it's truly kind of all over the place. But for that salary, again, $10,600 on FanDuel, there is a lot to like in terms of the recent data. So I think that someone like Lowry, it's going to come down to roster construction and how you view the slate, whether we simply view him as like not in the same tier as the studs. And so I'm actually not even going to be in that salary range, or can we just view him as a stud who's kind of undersalaried and we can just build around, someone like Shane Lowry instead and save, roughly $1,000 in terms of our salary cap by just going with Shane Lowry. So any thoughts for you on Lowry?
I like the thought process. I just like to apply that thought process to different individuals because like for me, I like Cameron Smith and I like Joaquin Niemann. Those two guys are both directly beneath Shane Lowry. So like Cam Smith has a really good short game. Joaquin Niemann has the distance, is also bent grass, which should be good for him as well. So I like the idea of having my second golfer be in this range, or using someone like Mito Pereira to get back up into this range. But I think that when I'm doing so, I'd rather do that with Joaquin Niemann or Cameron Smith. So how do you view Lowry relative to those two guys specifically?
I would have him third behind. Actually, well, let me do this. I would prefer Cameron Smith, Joaquin Niemann, Corey Connors, and Sung J M over Shane Lowry.
Yeah. I think I'd agree. Connors is the one that kind of makes me fluctuate a bit.
Connors is in, I don't actually know if I'm talking about him on the picks. Maybe I am, but he's been lighting it up in like big events.
And maybe he's awesome. I used him at the Open. It was great. But like, I have enough concerns there. I'm a little bit cautious with it. But I do think that Lowry's low enough where when I'm in this range, I'll probably gloss over him for other guys.
7th at the Players, 8th at the Masters.
Connors?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
7th at the Players, 8th at the Masters, 17th at the PGA, missed the cut at the US Open, 15th at the British Open.
I mean, it's because he's good. He's a good golfer. Just like there are enough concerns where if you give me 4 rounds of sample where things could go wrong with the short game, it might happen. I know the putting has been much better recently. He's had events where he's actually been good around the greens accidentally too. So I'm not writing him off, but like I'm a little bit lower on him than I'd rather go Neiman, just go Smith. I agree with Sung Jae too, but
I would say not even looking at what my simulations or data says. So like you give me Cam Smith versus Corey Connors, they could easily just finish like 10th here or something. And I wouldn't be surprised. Or let's just say 10th. Corey Connors is probably going to make significantly more birdies than Cameron Smith. And so I think from that perspective, Connors would get, like, I don't want to sleep on Connors just because there are concerns. He can make a lot of birdies.
Do you want to do a FanDuel point head-to-head then? Because that seems like that's the angle, is like more birdies, better for FanDuel points. Do you want to do a Cam Smith versus Corey Connors head-to-head?
Sure. Canada versus Australia.
Do they have any quarrels with each other? I don't know international relations at all. I studied it in college, but I don't remember any of it.
Man,
I want to create a rivalry here. We'll work on it.
I got like a concentration in international finance, which...
What?
The only way I could graduate on time.
Fair enough. Yeah. Graduation's good. Anyway, let's move now to the value plays here. We're talking about 3 different guys who have been doing some interesting stuff recently. Starting off with Johnny Vegas, like the only thing that I did okay with last week was talking about Johnny Vegas, another runner-up. It's the second runner-up in his past 4 events. He did that by gaining everywhere. He gained 2.6 off the tee, 4.3 in approach, 1.6 around the green, and 2.1 putting. And the approach play has been especially good recently. He's gained at least 3.5 in 4 straight events, including the US Open. The problem is that the other events were definitely weaker fields. This one is, I wouldn't say tough, I'd say top-heavy. Big time contenders here, top heavy field. When you account for field strength, Vegas ranks 18th in true strokes gained the past 6 months, according to Data Golf. That's pretty good for a golfer at $8,500. So I'm still cautious with Vegas, but I'm very interested and I'm very likely to use him. How do you feel about Jonathan Vegas this week?
Like the Venezuelan, I got to get more into like the Olympic mood and like site nationalities and stuff, but 89%.
So I can call Thomas Peters the wrong nationality again.
That's good.
That was bad.
89th percentile in birdie or better rate gained over the past 100 rounds, according to Fantasy National. Percentile ranks are screwing me up because it's such a small field, but either way, it's a good mark, no matter what. And I think that he, like Connors, fits a little bit extra from, he should be able to gain distance, and make birdies. And so depending on where he finishes, like I would expect him to outscore most of the golfers that he finishes in the same position as this week. And so someone like that has extra appeal for me. Also, Australia and Canada. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you had more.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I want to know this.
According to Wikipedia. Canada's and Australia's militaries have fought alongside each other numerous times, including World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and many United Nations Security Council sanctioned missions.
Boring. I don't want that. Anyway, let's move now to Antoine Rosner, $8,100. He's not a guy we talked about in the heat check because he's not a PGA Tour regular, but it sounds like he should be our new Corey Connors. So what are your thoughts on Antoine Rosner this week at $8,100?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at like value plays for all my content this week, and Rosner at $8,100 certainly fits. But I was like, well, the short game's not good enough. And then I was like, well, that's exactly what we typically look for. So his salary, I have him 28th in the field in salary. There, 28th in the field in salary. But over the past 50 rounds, he is 25th in true strokes gained, according to Data Golf. So that's right on par. But he's 17th in strokes gained at tee to green, which is better. And if you would combine that from just the ball striking standpoint, it would be better yet. 9th off the tee and 16th in approach. His around the green play, not very good. His putting, not very good. So if you compare the ball striking to the salary, undersalaried. If you compare the overall player, it's a fair value. But that makes him a heat check mark of the week, basically, with that short game. Now, upside does get capped when short game can never be good, but birdies can still come from elite ball striking. And again, I would rather have golfers who should hit greens in regulation and have a chance to make some putts than golfers who I don't trust to hit as many greens and are just really strong putters whenever we're guaranteed that safety of 72 holes anyway. So did he do enough for you? I don't know if you looked into Rosner at all at 8,100.
Yeah. So I think that he would be a consideration because to me, he comes in before that fall off we were talking about, where the quality of golfer falls off a cliff. So he's a consideration for me. I would just have to decide, do I prefer him over Sebastian Munoz is down there? I know things have not been dazzling for him recently. Guido Migliozzi is down there. Carlos Ortiz is down there. I think Ortiz is really fun this week. So he'd be a consideration for me. And so I had to decide, do I want to build around, Ortiz as someone I do feel good about, or do I want to differentiate down there? And I feel like I will be differentiating down here a bit because I would rather build around studs and try to get those right and then differentiate with the value plays. So I feel like I wouldn't be shocked if he wants my player pool, not a priority, but someone I'm open to at least. I think that's the way I'd phrase it personally.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we always talk about too is, if you're building multiple lineups, you have to have somewhat of a core. You can't just play completely different lineups all over. So you gotta lock in either the studs, the mid-range, or the values. For me, I'm going to narrow down the studs that I like most, probably to JT, Xander, Patrick Reed, and then rotate in these more volatile value plays. So Rosner, while not necessarily someone I'm locking into a head-to-head, would be someone I would have a lot of interest in rotating into my tournament core.
Yes, I think that he's interesting for me, but one guy I like more than him is Mito Pereira. Now, Brandon, don't look at the sheet. Don't look at data golf. If you had to guess, without context, just pretend that this conversation is starting now. Okay. Let me ask you, if you had to guess, who leads the field in true strokes gained off the tee over the past 6 months, according to data golf? Who would you guess?
Just true total?
True strokes gained off the tee.
Oh, off the tee. I got nothing.
It's Mito Pereira. I don't know how you...
Gosh.
Wow, shocker, right? It's crazy. Wow. Where'd that come from? He's golfing really well. We can get
what's his shot length sample in that?
17 events.
Yeah, but how many of those have shot length?
I don't know, man. Do I care? Yeah, I don't know. He looks good.
Not with the narrative.
What's that?
Not with the narrative. You just ignore anything like that.
Yeah. How dare you try to counter my fun stat with your idiocy and common sense?
Hey, 14 rounds, it's not irrelevant.
Yeah, get out of here. Stop trying to rain on my parade. Stop trying to rain on Mito's parade. Don't ask. Don't ask. Don't ask. Just let Mito thrive. Let him flourish.
All right. Do you know who ranks first in true strokes gained approach over the past 6 months?
Morikawa?
No. Rikuya Hoshino, because he has 6 rounds of shot length.
Yeah, but that's not as cool as off.
He's at a plus 1.71. Morikawa is at a plus 1.55. So
take a back seat, Morikawa.
Samples are irrelevant.
Take that claret jug in the back seat, bro.
Yeah, Hoshino, the best iron player in the field, if we're not caring.
Facts. Mito's the best off the tee. And
my gosh, Morikawa is so good with his irons.
He's gross. Anyway, back to Mito. He gained 10.6 tee to green at the Barbasol. It's the Barbasol, but whatever. He did a bit more of his work on the greens at the 3M Open. He did still gain 2.6 in approach there, though. He also gained 2.4 in approach the week before that at the John Deere Classic. So Mito doesn't grade out as well in terms of true strokes gained as a guy like Jonathan Vegas. And he's a couple spots behind Antoine Rosner as well. But I still think he's kind of undersalaried at $7,800. So I think that to me, if I'm going to quote unquote punt, I don't think this fits like the true definition of a punt, but like if I'm going to take a super low salary guy in order to jam in more studs, I would say Mito Pereira is the first guy I turn to there. And I'm okay having like 30-ish% Mito Pereira this week. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be down in this range a bit just because of the no cut format, but I would say, Pereira is the only golfer in the 7,000 range aside from approach god Bakuya Hoshino.
No, Scott Piercy has been dethroned.
Yeah. But I think Pereira is the only golfer in the 7,000 range who I will actually roster. And for what it's worth, his win odds on FanDuel Sportsbook did shorten from 150 to 1 to 80 to 1. Mm-hmm. When I saw him at 150, I was a little confused because Rosner was, 80 to 1. So
people know. People are
now Rosner's 90 to 1. So
wow, Mito's better. Mito better. Sorry. Facts only, bro. Speaking of betting odds this week, Colin Morikawa, the favorite of FanDuel Sportsbook, he checks in at 7 to 1. Ya boy Xander Schauffele is 9 to 1, followed by Justin Thomas at 10 to 1. We got Victor Hovland and Hideki Matsuyama at 11 to 1, Rory McIlroy 12 to 1, Paul Casey and Patrick Reed check in at 14 to 1. Then there is a cluster at 20 to 1. Those guys are Cameron Smith, Shane Lowry, Abraham Ancer, and Joaquin Niemann, everyone we discussed before. So, Brandon, it is a no-cut event. There is a big drop-off in quality at a certain point. How are you looking to construct rosters this week? Final answer, what you doing?
I'm going to pick 5 to 6 golfers above 10,000. The 9,000 range is non-existent, and not even from a quality standpoint. They're just aren't a lot of golfers with a 9 in front of their salary. So probably about 5 or 6 that I'm trying to get, anywhere between 30 and 60 because it is a small event and I need to take some chances. So basically what I'm trying to get at is lock in my favorite studs, narrow that part down, and then just be rotating in the values. If you're asking me from a head-to-head or cash game standpoint, it's going to be a little bit more balanced where I'm not going to try to force in Morikawa. I would even be more open to avoiding Xander and building around someone like Patrick Reed at 11,100 as my highest salary golfer, just because I don't anticipate Patrick Reed disappointing. He's representing his country over 72 holes. I think he will find a way to be very relevant this week. So tournaments, I laid that out, but cash games, more balanced, probably only one golfer in that below 8,500 range, just because you never know. And I want to at least feel really confident with all 6 of my golfers in a head-to-head lineup.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way I want to go too. And I think that for me, I think that the way I'm phrasing it is, can this guy realistically get a top 10? And if I can't say yes with a decent amount of confidence to that answer, then I can't get to them. So although it's a no-cut event, I can't go stars and scrubs full on because I can go scrub and stars with a Mito Pereira, but I can't do more than that. And I think that's takeaway for me is making sure I have golfers who have relevant paths, viable paths, realistic paths to a top 10 finish. And that's the way I want to play things for this week. Which lower salary golfers have odds to stand out to you?
Sorry, I was looking up some movement. I know we're not specifically talking about it, but because I mentioned Pereira, I was curious. Again, Pereira was 150 to 1. He's now 80 to 1. But Sebastian Munoz fell from 90 to 65. Sung J M 27 to 22. I think those are some of the most relevant ones. So that's good news for Munoz because I know we both like him a good bit. Lower salary golfers with odds that stand out to me. would be Garrick Higo at 41-1. He's 9,300 on FanDuel. Siwoo Kim's 42 at 9,000. Guido Migliozzi 45-1 and 8,900. Alex Noren, Thomas Peters, Jonathan Vegas 50-1. Mackenzie Hughes, Carlos Ortiz, very similar in play style, really. 60-1. Thomas Dietrich, Sebastian Munoz 65, Mito Pereira 80, and Antoine Rosner 90.
And it seems like all those guys are people we'd be willing to roster. Dietrich's not someone who really popped up for me personally, but
I would say no Dietrich, no Peters, no.
I'm not really into Hughes either.
I don't mind Hughes. He has, he's shown some flashes with the irons. He actually at the Open was doing it again. I was using traditional stats, but his putting wasn't actually very good, and his greens and regulation numbers were pretty good. So, it's a one event sample, so I don't want to get too involved in that. But Hughes is a good golfer, overall. So he's someone I'm always historically low on because he doesn't fit the profile, but. And by that I mean not strong. He's stronger putting than he is tee to green. That's usually not what I'm looking for from a predictiveness standpoint. But overall, he's actually just one of the stronger golfers in that range. Again, he's 8,600. So not out on Hughes. I know it probably is getting to the point where I sound like I like everyone, which is not the case. But
they're all Olympians. It's hard. You can like all of them. That's okay. They're all good.
But this is speaking more to, I'm saying I like this guy a bit and this guy a bit, but that's more the value plays and not, I like Abraham Answer a lot at 10-7, like Shane Lowry. I'm really finding it easier to whittle down the studs than the values.
I agree. I think and honestly, that's the way we tend to play things in general too.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Thomas Peters, $8,700, 50 to 1 to win. He doesn't have any data recently because he doesn't play very often, but we know that he has decent distance. We know he can beat off the tee. It's just it's when he has played, it hasn't been good recently. So any interest for you in Thomas Peters, $8,700?
No, he's starting to feel like more of a known name than others down here. So that would probably just naturally bump him up a bit more than I even would want to.
Yeah, I think Vegas, Ortiz, Noren, Munoz, Pereira, all well ahead of Peters for me. Weather for this week, you probably have heard that there is a typhoon heading to Tokyo, which seems less than ideal. However, it seems like it'll be mostly gone by the time they tee off Wednesday night our time. There will not be a lot of wind throughout the weekend. There will be some waves of rain, though. So obviously tee times won't be that different given 60 golfer field. So it's not like a situation where you may need to stack. It also doesn't seem to be the worst weather. So I would say you're okay to play things largely straight up. Maybe if you want to stack the guys who tee off earlier in the day, you could. But again, it's a lower gap than usual because of the smaller field for this week. So let's move now to our player picks for the men's Olympic golf competition. Brandon, who do you like in the upper tier for this week?
It's going to sound like we don't like Colin Morikawa, which is not the case really. But we're not picking him here, and we weren't quite as high on him as we probably should have been. So it's less to do with Morikawa, more to do with his salary, more to do with popularity, and more to do with the other options we have, which is always the biggest question. If you don't have pivots, it's easier to play someone who's chalky. If you have pivots, it's a lot easier to pivot. So that's why I'm going with Justin Thomas, representing the United States of America. His salary is $11,600 on FanDuel. And if you want to talk golfers in small field, no cut events, I still always think of Xander first, but that's dumb because it should be JT. It's actually hard to find just who has the most wins at no cut events. So I went back and tallied them up. I think I got them all. I have 10 for JT in his career, which is wild. And according to Fantasy National, which does have a no cut filter, which is not necessarily going to show you all the wins or whatever, but leads the field in strokes gained average on or in no cut events at 1.6 strokes per round gained. Xander's at a 1.5, Morikawa is at a 1.2, and there's only three above, 1. And that also is, it's not going to show what type of course that is or what the event is. But if you're playing in a no cut event, it's a strong field. Even the Olympics is somewhat of a strong field. So I'm not worried about any of that. And we know what Justin Thomas can do when he's on, and that's just look like one of the best, if not the best player on the planet. So 92nd percentile adjusted tee to green over the past year. So JT, I feel really good with. Probably not going to be quite as popular as someone like Morikawa, Xander, or Hideki. So that's the angle I'm playing at the top this week.
You don't even need like the no cut angle to like JT.
Right.
Like the stats by themselves are good.
And the wedge play, yeah, and the wedge play too is like that's I think probably what makes someone like JT and Xander so good is like you can get into trouble over 72 holes if your wedges are bad, but if you have really good wedges, you probably are saving par a lot more, making birdies that you probably shouldn't make. So that's something that's really appealing to me. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good. I was done talking, okay. Which is for the best. So I thought I agreed with what you were saying. The only thing that I would say is that I think I like Hovland a bit more if I'm trying to pivot off of the guys I think are likely chalk. I think that Hovland is tremendous. He's not my player picks, but from a tournament perspective, if I had I think for single entry contests, I think that Hovland is really, really intriguing for this week. My favorite high salary guy.
Can we do a Hovland JT bet then?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. It's not that I dislike JT. I just like Hovland a lot for this week. Okay. My favorite high salary guy, because I got to the sheet before Brandon, is Xander Schauffele. Xander is someone who should be able to handle this course no matter how it may play because he's accurate enough to avoid the hazards, but he's also fifth at distance, so he can launch it. He ranks 7th in approach and 3rd in bentgrass putting, in addition to being a plus around the greens. Xander leads the field in true strokes gained across the past calendar year. He has a full 0.32 strokes in the field per round in that time. At 11.8, I feel like Xander is where we start for cash games. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. You can never make a case against Xander at any course because of what he does statistically. The only thing you can really say at this point is that he's not going to win, which is something that you cannot guarantee for any golfer. Yes, other golfers convert their wins or win opportunities at a higher rate, much higher rate than Xander, specifically Morikawa, JT. But we don't really have a whole lot of closers in this thing otherwise. Rory hasn't been doing it. Hovland hasn't really done it. Hideki hadn't done it forever until the Masters. Reed probably you could say does, but Paul Casey, Abraham Ancer, from a process standpoint, Xander is the best play. From a win simulation standpoint, I have Xander at 12.4% likely to win. JT's at 8.7% or 8% even, and only Hovland is at above 7.0 right now.
Yeah. Do you know that his full name is Alexander? I didn't know this.
Schauffele?
Yeah.
Does he have a cool middle name too, or no?
I don't know, but I was on the Wikipedia page. Wikipedia. See here.
It's Alexander Victor. I thought it was. That's a strong name though. Alexander Victor Schauffele.
No, I was going to say the amount of foresight and swagginess it takes to go with Xander over Alex or something like that. That's 10 out of 10. So another reason to go all in on Alexander Schauffele for this week. Who is your second high salary guy for the men's Olympics golf?
I'm going to go with Patrick Reed. And I think that now that we've mentioned Xander, JT, and Reed, it's probably going to be my big three for the week. Okay. Reed coming in to replace Bryson DeChambeau, who tested positive for COVID, has a lot of appeal this week. Even though I'm seeking birdies because from what I kind of gather, it's not going to play super tough, especially if fairways are wide, which helps Reed, who's not a good driver from a distance or accuracy standpoint. But Reed's actually a really good birdie maker. He's in the 91st percentile in birdie or better rate gained over the past 100 rounds. And I know JT and to a smaller extent Xander will be pointed out as no cut mavens, but Reed has a lot of small field wins, 2 WGCs, the Tournament of Champions, the Northern Trust twice. Even the Masters is not a full field if there's a cut, obviously, but we've seen good stuff from Reed. He we don't do this kind of stuff, but I do think he'll probably be really, really focused because he's representing his country, which seems to matter to him. So I think Reed won't be nearly as popular as some of the other options up here. And I think he's got, I have him at 7% likely to win, which is just behind, it puts him fourth right in that conversation for like the favorite. And I don't think he'll be treated as such on FanDuel.
So I'm going to get you try to wiggle out another head-to-head here because my second guy, mentioned before that Xander Schauffele leads the field in true strokes gained the past calendar year. The guy who is second is Paul Casey. And Casey is also tops in the field in that category the past 6 months. He's 11,000. Do you want a Paul Casey versus Patrick Reed head? You're already writing it down.
Yeah, I'm already writing it down.
Okay, so we
USA,
got that.
baby.
That's really concerning that you wrote that down so fast. Maybe I should be concerned.
Is it? Because our podcast head-to-heads are now 22-12 in favor of you. And also, by the way, 15-13 in the bobble hat. So I'm losing my lead quick.
Yeah, I need to renew our league because it expired. I'll talk to you about that after. But anyway, Paul Casey has gained. Did you count last week? I told you not to count last week. I just put it in there for
counted
funsies.
Last week.
I told you not to. It's 15-12. Anyway, Paul Casey has gained at least 4.7 strokes in approach and 1.0 at the tee in 4 straight measured events. In the lone non-measured event, he finished 15th at the Open. Casey is typically rough on the greens, but he does rank 9th in the field in strokes gained putting on bent grass the past 100 rounds. He adds distance as well. So I think he's a full package here at $11,000. Why have we not talked about Paul Casey yet? And what are your thoughts on him this week?
I don't know. I think
you
it's
hate
just
greatness. You hate greatness. Admit it.
I think it's honestly
fatigue.
Just long-term Paul Casey fatigue, which is not a good example or a good excuse, I should say. Similar with like Xander, I think people are still high on Xander, but not quite to the point that they used to be. Just because, Casey's got some wins, won earlier this year in Dubai, but the data is really, really strong for Casey. So I don't really have a process-based reason not to like Casey.
Except you hate greatness. That's the process. You hate greatness. I get it.
But I will say that over the past year, once adjusted for field strength, I have Patrick Reed as a better player, more likely to win. And again, I'm really not going to go against Patrick Reed when he's got that red, white, and blue on.
Is he actually wear I hope he goes with like a red and white or red and blue, like striped polo with like white pants. Like that's what I want.
I think they have like predetermined uniforms. I'm not sure. I actually did not even watch the 2016 event, but although I made a great book socks joke with Patrick Reed in one of his polos at the Open, and nobody got it, but people I guess don't remember book socks.
I have no idea what book socks are.
It's the stretchy material you would put on your books in middle school, and they all have
except
the
for
cool patterns.
Unless you were broke and had the
brown paper bags.
Yeah, brown paper bags. Yeah.
Hey man, I did that. That was
the way to go.
Yeah, but there was like a blue camo one that everyone had, and it looked just like Patrick Reed's polo, and I thought
if you saved money on book covers, you could have more allowance for Spider-Man figures. So who's actually the winner here? It's me, guaranteed.
It's Patrick Reed.
It's not. Let's move down to the mid-range and talk about some guys we like around 10,000 and 9,000 in that range. Brandon, you're going to a guy who could also wear red, white, blue, but for Chile and not for the USA, because Chile's flag is also red, white, and blue. That's Joaquin Niemann. What stands out to you about Niemann here?
I like that you had to explain.
People don't know what the Chile. I mean, they probably do, but not everyone, not 100% of the listeners. Millions of listeners may not all know what Chile's flag looks like.
A lot of these flags are red, white, and blue, though.
True.
But yeah, Niemann, love him. That's all I got. No, he's got some question marks with the wedges. 23rd percentile adjusted strokes gained around the green over the past year in my database, but green lights elsewhere. Off the tee approach and putting, and he's on bent grass, at least from what I'm seeing from my research. So that's pretty nice. And I do think that Niemann coming off the 59th at the Open is not going to, drum up a whole lot of interest, especially with some other golfers one of which you'll be talking about in just a second, drawing some attention. But he's been heating up long-term with that putter. and that leads to upside over those guaranteed rounds. So I like Neiman, and I think the low 10,000 range has a lot of big names, and I'm kind of treating them as like tier 2 studs, just like low, like more affordable studs to roster this week. So I do like that range a lot.
If you want to be in this range without overextending yourself, without punting on like a Mita Pereira type guy, I would say getting your Xander, getting your JT, getting your whoever, and then getting 2 guys from this range, that's pretty attractive to me. Yeah. And Neiman would be in that rotation for me.
Yeah, like I said, Cam Smith, Neiman, Connors, and someone else.
Is it Sungjae Im?
It is.
Speaking of another guy who could wear red, white, and blue, but there is black on the South Korean flag too. So we'll add in like black shoes for Sungjae, and we'll just have him wear the same thing as Patrick Reed. But that is Sungjae Im, $10,000 for this week. And you were talking about how Patrick Reed may be extra motivated wearing the flag or whatever he's wearing for this week. Sungjae Im has motivation, man. It's a big one too. He and Siwoo Kim skipped the Open. You'll probably hear this like 16,000 times this week, but I don't care. They skipped the Open to rev up for this event because if they medal, they get to skip mandatory military service in South Korea. So clearly laser focused on this event, and their travel schedules have likely been optimized. Like Johnny Vegas is playing last week, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they probably have been planning around this, and I'm fine baking that in because like psychologically it matters, the travel schedule does matter. So Sungjae, I think he comes before the big fall off in this field. It is more narrative based than we usually go, but I think for an event like this, I'm actually okay doing that. So that's why I'm in on Sungjae. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. But he's always good with the driver, like just to gain strokes, it feels like. And the putting is quite good as well. So he's at least 81st percentile in strokes to get off the tee and putting once adjusted for field strength and recency over the past year. Good birdie maker. And like you said, just that extra motivation. Not that anyone here is going to be unmotivated. And sometimes that pressure could be a bad thing, but Sungjae Im doesn't really seem that flappable either. So
yeah,
he's going to be popular.
Yeah. Because of the narrative. And I think there are ways to pivot. Yeah. So keep that in mind. I would say that like the high 9,000 range is not all that attractive to me though. So
well, there's like 6 golfers with the 9 in front of their name.
You're true.
Like
you're true. That's true.
1, 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy Fleetwood at 99, Mark Leishman 98. I think a lot of people will probably lump them into that cluster, but I won't. Christian Bezadenhout 97. So yeah.
Let's move down to the other mid-salary guys we like. Jumping down beneath that range. Who else do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with this because for us, we're looking at golfers generally in the 9,000 range. And outside of those 3 names I just listed, we have Garrick Higo at 93, Alex Noren at 92, who I'm out on after he burned me, but then I looked closer and I shouldn't have liked him anyway. And then Siwoo Kim at 9,000, who you'll talk about in a second. So kind of by default, but also not something I hate is Higo at 9,300. We've seen him just light it up. He had 2 European Tour wins, a PGA Tour win at the Palmetto within a 5-start span. And then it all came crashing down. 4 missed cuts in his past 5 starts, which is not what you want to see. But if you look back at his finishes, we've seen like missed cut streaks followed by strings of top 20, strings of like top 15s and wins, and then some cuts. So still young, still probably working on some things. And we know that the sheer upside is basically first place in a field this good, maybe more realistically top 5 because, he's got the JT, Xander, Morikawa in the mix. But I think Higo, a high risk play, but a little bit less risky because it is the no cut event.
Yeah, I think that he's interesting for sure. And I would also say Alex Noren's in that consideration. He is $9,200 and tremendous bent grass putter. He's good else. You don't like him?
No.
Why?
I never really liked Noren. And then,
you recommended him like 2 weeks ago.
Did you not hear what I just said?
Oh.
Come on. I forgot. You know what? I forgot about how you never listen to what I say. I leave and I'm optimistic and then come back. And I said like his iron play is always too weak, and he's just really good with the short game. And that makes him the type of golfer I don't like to roster. And yes, I recommended him at the Open because he had really good Open numbers, and it seemed like it was going to be a tough event at the Open, and it wasn't. So that's just yeah.
Well, I'm going to go here. The irons are not a baked in negative. He has some distance off the tee, ranking 18th there the past 50 rounds, leads the field in bentgrass putting. He finished fourth at the Rocket Mortgage. So Norton 92 is good. I would say, though, I'm okay skipping over this tier. Going like, Siwoo Kim at $9,000 with like Ortiz or something like that, and just living in the high 9,000 range or the low 10,000 range, trying to make that work. That could work, but I think that I'm fine with Noren if I wind up at 92. No objections here, but you're a hater. So let's move down to the value tier. Who do you like there?
I mean, I think it's real. I think it's justified hate. Like it's not hate. It's just like I'm not interested. So I want to make that clear. Also, over the past 100 rounds, could you guess who is last in this field with data in opportunities gained, which is a fantasy national stat that basically indicates birdie opportunities? Could you guess who would be last?
Xander Schauffele, just to be spiteful.
It's the other Alexander, and that's Alexander Noren.
Or Alex.
So he's gonna like stay out of trouble. He's first in doubles avoided, but I don't think that's really what we need this week over 72 holes. So
feel free to lose
the
money.
Open. I liked him at the Open. Don't like him at the Olympics. Can we make a bet then? Like no. Higo versus Noren?
No, I like Higo. It's fine. I don't mind him. So no.
Think of a Noren bet because I want this.
Okay. Alex Noren versus Hurley Long. You told me to give you one. Fabrizio Zanotti. Kyle Green. Or Gavin Green.
Kevin Green.
Gavin Green.
I'm going to talk about Guido. You tell me if you'll take a bet against Noren.
Oh, I like Guido too.
Migliozzi is 11th in Data Golf's true strokes gained approach numbers over the past 20 rounds across his ShotLink data sample, 5th in overall true strokes gained, which doesn't necessarily need ShotLink, so that's the more reliable stat. So really good, super recent form. If you look back 50 rounds, he's 22nd in true strokes gained, which makes him just basically one of the best value plays in the field, and just like kind of undervalued. I would not be surprised if he would have been like 9,200 as well. I think it's just naturally where the salaries fell for Guido. So I like him way more than Alex Noren this week.
Way more. Wow.
Way more.
So do you want to give me like Noren plus 30 versus Guido head to head?
See, I should have stayed on the dry tortugas.
Stay on the island.
Roasting in the sun.
Stay with Williams Astudillo. Stay there. Hang out with La Tortuga, and you could have been fine. You could have avoided this, but hey, you came back. This is your choice. You can only blame yourself. So let's talk about Siwoo Kim. True. I love Siwoo. Even outside of the narrative. The narrative is like, that is what it is. But $9,000, low salary, not the longest guy at the tee, but he should have everything else here. He ranks 16th in approach, 7th around the green, 13th in bentgrass putting. And Kim is a good driver. He's not, I wouldn't say good. He's not a bad driver.
So his left turns are.
Come on, man. It's more the right turns that get me into Siwoo Kim.
It's like a racing.
I get it. Also, I was thinking about Olympic racing, and it got me very excited, and I wish we would do it. But anyway, he's not a bad driver, despite the fact that he's not super long off the tee. So if I had to choose between one of the guys from a strictly narrative perspective between Sung Jae and Siwoo Kim, I would go Siwoo Kim for me. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Siwoo Kim this week?
Love him. Would have talked about him if you did not. There are question marks, obviously, with someone like Siwoo Kim, but he's actually one of the best like per salary dollar values when I combine stats that I'm looking at and overall long-term form. Combine those into one number compared to the salary. He's just like a top 3 value this week. So going to have a lot of Siwoo Kim. I won't be alone in that, but I don't feel that worried. And he's going to like withdraw or something.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think he would this week. I think he'd gut through it for sure. Yeah. Let's move down to our other value guys. Who else do you like here?
Jonathan Vegas, the Venezuela. I mean, I forgot to mention all the. Darn.
Where's Guido Migliozzi from? That's a tough one.
Who could say?
But I'm Jim. Welcome back, Brandon.
I think that like the ball striking from Vegas is really promising for 4 guaranteed rounds. He's not going to make every birdie chance he gets, but he is going to get into those opportunities. Again, 89th percentile in birdie or better rate gained, 80th percentile in opportunities gained over the past 100 rounds, according to Fantasy National. So I think that, again, he's probably going to outscore the golfers he finishes, tied with on the leaderboard because he'll make some extra birdies, possibly some eagles.
I like Vegas a lot. I also like Carlos Ortiz because once you adjust for competition, Ortiz is undersalaried here, $8,400. He is 25th in salary, but his win odds rank 23rd, and he is 16th in true strokes gained over the past 6 months. And he'll have the distance to keep up here. Ortiz ranks 6th in distance the past 50 rounds. The approach play has been trending back up recently. He has gained in 5 of the past 6 measured events. That includes 2 what I would deem to be like pop events. He's gained 4.8 at the Byron Nelson, 9.5 at the Memorial. Also had a 3 strokes gained approach event in there as well. You could do a lot worse for $8,400. Brandon, Ortiz or Vegas for you this week?
I don't know why I didn't. I think I just forgot. I was writing some of this in the car ride home, but Ortiz is the most likely winner in my simulations among golfers with a salary below 9,000, just 1.6%. But that's gonna stem from really strong long-term form. We've talked a lot about Carlos Ortiz over the years, so I need to inject him in my article on numberFire, and I probably would rank him. Yeah, you're right. That's a great call with Ortiz.
Do you prefer him or Vegas?
Probably Ortiz long term.
I think it's close, but I like both. I would probably go Ortiz by a hair, but I think it's very close, and I like both. So they will be among the core rotational guys for me this week in the value section. Let's finish up here with some win picks. You are riding high off a Colin Morikawa win at the Open Championship because he was your win pick there. So you can have honor and go first. Who are your win picks for the men's Olympics golf competition?
It's a good question. I didn't even think about this. No. I'm just deciding between do I go with Xander at 9-1 because this is we're looking at bets that we'd actually make. It's a little bit short for me at 9-1, so I'm more inclined to go with Patrick Reed at 14-1 for my first option.
Well, then we're going to keep the head-to-heads going. So we have a Reed versus Casey head-to-head. I'm going to go Paul Casey. It's my first win pick because Paul Casey, known winner who wins all the time, 14-1. I just think the data is too good for me to ignore him in an event like this. So I'll go Paul Casey. Struggling for the other guy, honestly.
Yeah, it's tough because
I know. Sorry, I know.
Who's it going to be?
He shortened. No.
Who?
Cameron Smith. He was 22 and he's now 20. I'm still going to pick him though.
Okay.
So I want Paul Casey and Cameron Smith.
All right, well then I'll go Corey Connors at 27, and then we'll have both of our head-to-heads. So this is all types of hedging.
Love to tie all my head-to-heads to Paul Casey and Cameron Smith, and we'll see what happens. Let us hope that off the tee play does not matter as much for old Cameron. And the good thing is he does fit with the Cameron narrative, just being the year of the Camerons. So I guess that helps. Only Camerons are allowed to win, except for Tringali, because why would he be allowed to win? I'm not mad. Anyway, that is all that we have here for this week. Brandon, any final thoughts for you on this men's Olympics golf before we close up shop for today?
The one thing I would say is take a stand if you feel strongly about any particular golfer, someone like Rory or Hovland, who I know Jim's higher on than I am. Or Abraham Answer, I kind of said in in jest, but there are going to be guys who don't get talked up a lot, and they're all here for a reason, like Jim said. So look out for those guys and just trust yourself, because it is a no-cut event.
I think that I agree, where I will be building around studs, identifying who I want to go with there, and then still having like core plays among the value plays, but the exposure to said core plays being lower than with the studs for sure. That is all that we have here for this week, but don't forget, Brandon's back with you 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages, taking your questions on the men's Olympic golf competition. I'll be talking about golf or DFS and betting there, so tune in then and stick around for the MLB Q&A at 4 p.m. Do not forget to subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts, for Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, radio.com, you name it, you can find us there. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Goodula13, GDULA13.
And I'm at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups for this week. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.